You're crouched in the dirt somewhere in East Africa, roughly 2 million years ago. You're barely human. Bigger brow than brain, basically. You spot a rock. Not just any rock, a sharp one. Flaked just right. The kind that can crack a bone or skin a carcass. You picked it up an hour ago, worked it with your hands, and now something strange happens in your head. You don't just want this rock. You decide it's yours. Not the group's. Not whoever grabs it next. Yours. And somehow that one tiny mental leap, a creature with a brain the size of a grapefruit deciding this object belongs to me and not to you, is the seed of everything. Property law, inheritance disputes, your group chat fighting over an Airbnb bill, the entire concept of mine that runs underneath basically every argument humans have ever had, from who gets grandma's china to who owns a continent. Here's the thing that should bother you immediately. Animals don't really do this. A lion doesn't own the savannah. It defends territory, sure, but the second it walks away, that ground belongs to whoever's strong enough to take it next. A chimp might guard a piece of fruit while it's eating it, but 10 minutes later, it has no memory of ownership, no concept that the fruit was its property in some abstract, lasting sense. Possession in the animal kingdom is almost entirely physical and immediate. You're holding it, so it's yours. The instant you let go, the claim evaporates. Humans broke that rule completely. We invented the idea that an object can belong to you even when you're not touching it, even when you're asleep, even when you're 1,000 miles away. That is not a small cognitive trick. That requires you to believe something invisible, and it requires everyone around you to agree to believe it too. A rock doesn't know it's yours. The only reason it's yours is that other humans accept the claim, which means ownership isn't really a fact about objects at all. It's a fact about minds agreeing on a fiction together. So when did that fiction start? Who was the first human or pre-human who looked at something and thought mine in a way that actually stuck, that other members of the group respected, even when that individual wasn't around to defend it? The answer takes us somewhere genuinely strange, and it starts not with land, not with money, but with something a lot smaller and a lot sharper. The leap that makes this possible is something psychologists call theory of mind, the ability to understand that other people have thoughts, beliefs, and intentions separate from your own. A lion doesn't need this to guard a kill. It just needs the kill to be physically in front of it. But for mine to mean anything once you walk away, you need to model what's happening inside someone else's head. You need to believe that another person somewhere right now is thinking, that thing belongs to him, even while looking at empty space where you used to be standing. Most animals never get there. Chimpanzees show flashes of it, but nothing close to the consistent, abstract version humans run constantly without even noticing. So archaeologists went looking for the oldest physical clue that this kind of thinking existed. And the leading candidate isn't a hut or a field, it's a hand axe. Starting around 1.7 million years ago, early humans began producing Acheulean hand axes, teardrop-shaped stone tools that took serious skill to make. Here's the strange part. Many of these axes show a level of symmetry and craftsmanship that goes way beyond what's needed to just cut meat. Some archaeologists argue that certain hand axes functioned less like disposable tools and more like personal objects, things their makers carried, reworked, and held onto over time rather than discarding after one use. If that's true, it means some individual somewhere on the African savanna was treating a specific rock as distinctly his rock, not the group's rock, long before anything resembling language existed. The evidence gets sharper later. At Blombos Cave in South Africa, researchers found pierced shell beads dating back roughly 75,000 years, deliberately drilled, strung, and worn. Beads like that only matter if they are attached to a specific person, marking status, identity, belonging to someone in particular, rather than circulating freely through the group. A shared resource doesn't get threaded onto a string and worn around one individual's neck, and that's where the real complication shows up. None of this proves ownership the way we think of it today. A favorite tool isn't a deed to a house. A necklace isn't a bank account. So the question becomes uncomfortable fast. Was this actually ownership, or are we just projecting our modern obsession with property onto rocks and shells that meant something completely different to the people who made them? That skepticism is fair, and it's worth taking seriously instead of brushing past it. Maybe that hand axe wasn't his in any meaningful sense. Maybe it was just the tool he happened to be holding when archaeologists imagined a backstory onto a rock. Skepticism like that is healthy. Science should demand more than a good story. But here's where it gets harder to wave away. Ownership isn't really proven by an object existing. It's proven by what happens around that object when its owner isn't there to defend it. And that's exactly what shows up in the burial record. At sites like Sungir in Russia, dating back roughly 34,000 years, archaeologists found burials loaded with thousands of ivory beads, carved pendants and tools. Items clearly crafted specifically for one person and then placed with that person's body after death. Think about what that actually requires. The group had to agree collectively that these objects belonged to this individual so completely that even death didn't transfer them to someone else. Nobody melted those beads down for the next hunter. Nobody redistributed the tools to whoever needed them most. They went into the ground, permanently removed from circulation, because the social fiction of "this is his" outlasted the man himself. That's not territorial instinct. That's not a chimp guarding fruit. That's a group of humans agreeing on an abstract claim and honoring it even when honoring it cost them something. Grave goods like that appear independently across Europe, Asia, and Africa, which means this wasn't one weird tribe's quirky custom. Something about the human mind kept arriving at the same conclusion. Objects can belong to people permanently, beyond use, beyond life. And once that idea exists, it doesn't stay small. The same mental leap that let one hunter claim a hand axe eventually scales up to claiming a hunting ground, then a herd, then a river, then land itself. Early agricultural societies show the first clear evidence of stored surplus grain tied to specific households rather than shared communally. And almost immediately afterward, archaeologists find the first evidence of real inequality. Some graves suddenly contain far more wealth than others. Some skeletons show signs of better nutrition, less physical labor, longer lives. The exact mental trick that let one person say, "This axe is mine," eventually let another person say, "This land is mine, and you work it for me." Ownership didn't just build civilization. It built the first hierarchies, the first slaves, and the first wars fought specifically over who gets to keep what. So why does one species, alone among every animal on Earth, build entire legal systems, economies, wars, and inheritance disputes around an idea that doesn't exist anywhere in physical reality? The honest answer is that ownership was never really about the object. It was about something much stranger. It was the first time a human mind learned to make something real just by getting other minds to agree it was real. No clause needed, no physical presence required, just belief, shared and enforced by a group. That single trick turned out to be one of the most powerful pieces of technology our species ever invented. More foundational than fire in some ways, because fire only changes the physical world. Ownership changes the social one. And once you see it that way, the whole arc of human history starts looking different. Empires, banks, courtrooms, wills, divorce settlements, your group chat fighting over who actually paid for the Airbnb, all of it traces back to that same cognitive leap a pre-human made, staring at a sharpened rock 2 million years ago. We never stopped running that program. We just got better tools to enforce it. A deed is just a more bureaucratic version of "this is mine." A bank account is just a number standing in for the same ancient claim. Nothing about the underlying psychology has changed. We just added paperwork. Here's the part that should actually sit with you. Right now, today, you are constantly performing the exact same mental ritual as that first human. Every time you say, "my phone," "my car," "my house," you're not describing a physical fact. You're invoking an invisible agreement, a social fiction that only works because everyone around you has silently agreed to respect it. Take away that shared belief, and your possessions are just objects sitting in space, no different from a rock on the savannah. The only thing standing between your stuff being yours and your stuff being nobody's is millions of other human minds quietly agreeing not to take it. That's not a small thing. That's the entire invisible architecture holding civilization together, running in the background of every transaction, every property line, every "no, that's mine" you've ever said out loud. We built it from nothing but a shared agreement to believe in something we cannot see or touch. And it started, as far as we can tell, with someone exactly like you, standing in the dirt, holding a rock, deciding it was his. So here's the question. If nobody else on Earth agreed that something was yours, would it still feel like yours? Let me know in the comments.